Right. All right, showing us live. I'll double check here and make sure it's all working on YouTube. Yep, looks like we're good.
Awesome.
Yay! So welcome, Sarena. If you guys are used to watching me on my channel, let me introduce you to my friend Sarena Hess. She is such an incredible girl, and I'm so excited for you guys to get to know her better. So how are you?
I'm feeling really good. The coffee kicked in. So again, we're on the time zone difference. So this is like my time where it's like, okay, I can fly now.
Yeah. So Serena's out in California and I'm here in the Midwest. So we're like 2 hours different. So first of all, I just want to allow you to kind of introduce yourself to my audience and let them get to know you. So tell me a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Sarena. I'm a confidence coach for women. I'm also a wife, and I just recently announced I'm pregnant. So we'll be expecting a baby in January. But basically what I do is I create content for women to feel empowered and equipped to do the thing they want to do. Because it's like we always have those dreams and those ideas, but sometimes we get stuck in our own head and don't have the confidence to do the things that we want to do. So what I create, it looks like YouTube videos, podcast episodes, events in person. And so it all kind of spills over into helping women do what they want to do and feel more confident.
Yeah.
So.
That is such a cool niche. And I've never really heard of like a confidence coach or anything like that before I met you. So I want to know, like, how did that end up being your thing? How did that all come to be for you?
Yeah. So I got married at 19. And at 19, my friends were really split. So I looked around and most of my friends had moved away to college. And I was like, oh, you're all gone. And here I am, a new wife. And I was like, well, this kind of sucks. I felt really lonely, really isolated, really confused at like what to do with my life, like kind of that phase where it's like, okay, this is great. And so I really dove into personal development and like reading the books and like trying these mindset hacks and trying these habits, like trying all these different things. And slowly over time, over the years, like my life started to change and I was like feeling good, feeling happier, like, okay, I have purpose, like all those things. And then I started looking around and I noticed like not a lot of people were feeling the same way. I was like, wait, why are you struggling? And like, I wanted to, it's like when you find out something new and you try to teach someone, it's like spraying a fire hydrant like on their face or like a water hose. It's like that's way too much. And so I figured out, oh, okay, like if you're going to share, you need to condense it and make it bite-sized and like actually help people. So then I wanted to make a course on like habits. Like I was like, oh, like if someone gets their habits down, their entire life has changed. Everyone wants to know about habits, right? So I did a survey asking 100 of my friends, like, what do you want to learn about habits? And like, what's your biggest struggle? And it turns out like after 100 people that responded to the survey, all these girls were like, no, I don't struggle with habits. I struggle with confidence. I was like, confidence? Like again and again and again, because I was convinced. I'm like, oh no, habits, that's it. And these girls over and over, I struggle with how I look. I struggle with how I feel. I struggle with my confidence. And it just kept coming up. And so it was like, okay, well, if this is the problem, we can talk about this, the confidence. Okay. And then that's how I got into confidence. Like that's the long story.
Wow. Oh, that's so interesting. That's such a good like reminder for anyone who's like creating content that it's so important to like ask, even if you feel like you don't have a big audience, like ask some people or ask your friends who, what they need. Cause sometimes we think we know exactly what people need or what they want. And then we end up being way off. How did that feel for you? Like, did it take you a while to kind of come to grips with like, okay, I guess that's not what I'm going to be talking about? Or was that hard to like let go of what you kind of had in mind?
Yeah. Well, it was funny because my husband was like, I'm the one who I get an idea and I'm like, we are doing this. This is what's happening. Yeah. And my husband was like, okay, pump the brakes. Like, I believe in you. You have great ideas, but like, let's just make sure, let's just double check. And so he's the one who encouraged me to send out the poll. And then when I got the results back from like all my friends, it habits didn't feel, or no, confidence didn't feel like that much of a jump.
Hmm.
It was just a different approach.
Right.
So like you still need healthy habits to build your confidence, and a lot of confidence does come from habits, but it's just worded slightly differently. And so it was just like, oh, okay, like reposition, like regroup, and then go this way instead. So
Yeah. So kind of where, like, if you were to start with a client, not to like give away all your secrets, but
yeah.
kind of where do you begin? Like if someone's feeling not super confident or not happy in their own skin or whatever, like where would you tell them to even begin?
So when I'm talking with a client, we start with their beliefs. So what you believe about yourself, how you're talking to yourself throughout the day, how you see the world. And so that can obviously, that's a lot,
Yeah.
you can spend your life just in that one section. But a lot of confidence, we think it's like physical appearance. We think it's, oh, I don't feel confident because I gained 15 pounds, or, oh, I don't feel confident because I don't know how to style a cute outfit or to do my makeup. Like, that's when I don't feel confident. And yes, your makeup and clothes can affect your confidence, but ultimately, like the root of the problem is actually how you see yourself in relationship
Yeah.
to the world. So for example, like if you're going to a coffee shop and you're walking up to order your drink from the barista, if you feel like your barista is like grumpy and mean and doesn't want to talk to you, the way you approach them is probably going to be different. You're going to be like, oh, hi, like, can I please order a latte? Like you're going to be like, But if you walk into the coffee shop and you feel like this barista is nice and that they like you, if you feel like they're friendly, you're going to walk in much more confident. You're going to be like, oh, hi, like, how are you today? Like, I would love, like, you show up differently if you think the world likes you or not. And that's
Yeah.
confidence.
Oh, that's so true. That's so
Yeah.
true. And I think it's true also what you said about like it is what you look like, but it's also not. I mean, I think for myself, I told you on Wednesday when we talked, I did a bikini competition and I had like probably what a lot of people would consider like a dream body. I was pretty like chiseled and thin. And now that I don't look like that, I'm actually a lot happier in my skin than I was back then when I probably looked what a lot of people think that they, think would be like, surely that girl has no insecurities or whatever. But
Yeah.
I feel so much more confident now. And yeah, it's because, well, I don't know, it's because I see the world differently now, or I don't feel like everyone around me was like looking at me or judging me the way that maybe I did in the past. So it makes such a huge difference. So what does that look like for you in your life? Like, have you personally had to kind of make some shifts or make some changes in the way that you think, or how has that been for you?
Yeah, I think personally, it's funny because sometimes confidence has this stereotype, or when someone thinks confidence, they think of a person that's like loud, talkative to everybody, like huge personality. And for me, I'm not like that. I can do well in social situations, but my fallback, I actually prefer to be quiet.
Yeah.
I can go into a room and talk to everybody, but I would rather watch first and then interact with someone one-on-one.
Hmm.
So for me, for confidence, it has been a lot of like defining what it means to me to be confident, because it's different for everybody and it looks different for everybody. So it's funny being a confidence coach and feeling insecure. Like that's a great time.
Yeah.
So,
Like, who even am I?
yeah. So there was a moment like last year, I remember I was looking on social media and there was another confidence coach and we were just totally different people, and that's fine. But for
Mhm.
a moment, part of me was like, oh, am I supposed to be doing it like that? Am I supposed, like, she's fun and like putting herself out there, and she talks about like confidence during sex, and I'm like, oh, like I'm like really reserved, and I grew up in a Christian household, so it's
Yeah.
like, whoa, like and so you kind of, when you see someone else that's kind of confident in how you think, you start to question like, am I supposed to be doing it like that? Am I supposed to act like that? Like, is that what I'm supposed to be doing? And it can kind of cause, for me, it caused like those questions of kind of doubting, like, is that what it's supposed to look like? And in my life, developing confidence is understanding, like, no, this is who I am. This is how I was made. These are the personality types of me. And that's a unique and beautiful blend that no one else could be or do or try to become, even if they tried. Like there's the quote, it's from a TED Talk, and it said, you are as unique as your fingerprint or as your thumbprint. And it's like, even if someone was trying to be you, they couldn't. And so for me, the confidence is like understanding what I am and understanding what I am not, and not trying to be who I am not, and leaning into who I am. So
I love that. I love that. And I also think like sometimes it can be hard when you're still trying to figure out like who am I?
Yeah.
And then you look at someone else who's doing something you think maybe is something that you want to do, and then they're doing it completely different. It's like, well, is that who I'm supposed to be? Like, how have you kind of been able to find who you are and figure out what your strengths are, and what are those things that make you feel good about yourself, things that you can kind of lean on and say, when you look at someone who's maybe doing something similar to you, but in a completely different way, you can kind of tell yourself and kind of give yourself those affirmations like we talked about before. Like how do you even figure out what that is?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That's part of like what the beliefs is. Like when you go into your beliefs, you start to ask, okay, what do I believe about myself? How do I see myself? And sometimes like, sometimes we say little lies to ourselves where it's like, that's not necessarily true. But when it comes to figuring out like who you are, this year has been like super powerful for me personally, because I followed a lot of people on Instagram, and I love Instagram. I love checking the stories. I love reading the posts. I love Instagram, but I was spending so much time and I was so emotionally invested in other people's lives that I wasn't spending enough time like in my own world. And like, what I mean by that is like, I wasn't taking moments to pause and ask, like, how am I feeling right now? Like, what is my emotion in this season? Like, obviously this year was really hard and there was a lot to process. And if you never spend time with yourself and in your own world, you're not going to know how you feel.
Yes.
So that's like one thing, like spend time in your own world. Pull back from all the voices, pull back from all the voices on social media, because they don't have to live your life. Like you have to live your life. And so when you choose to get quiet, and it's uncomfortable, like it's really uncomfortable to sit with how you feel or sit with who you are. But the more you do it, and like over time, like your hand will stop itching to like grab your phone. I'm like, I need to check Instagram. It's like, chill out. You're okay. Like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Like, are you okay? Those are some good like ways to start getting in touch with like, okay, who am I in this world? Like, what do I add? What do I do in this world? What's going on with me?
Yeah.
So that's a big, like, get quiet.
Oh my gosh. I love that. And it can be so hard. I know for me, sometimes I think I use social media or even just like having the TV on or having all that like stimulation as almost like a coping mechanism. And I don't realize I'm doing it, but like, if there are things that I don't want to deal with or don't want to think about, or emotions that I just like kind of want to bury, I'll just like bombard myself with outside stimulus just to like not have to like go there and go to those like hard places that are hard to deal with. So I'm glad you like talked about how it is hard. It is sometimes really hard to just, not even just because it's such a habit to lift, pick up your phone and look at it. Yeah, that's hard too, because we're so programmed to do that. But it's also hard to sometimes just sit with yourself. I know one of my friends was saying that he makes himself drive to work with like no radio, no podcast, nothing, just in silence, and like give himself that time to just like be with himself. And I'm like, oh gosh, that's hard. Like, and so I started trying it, and it is like, you kind of are forced to like face yourself and figure out like, what am I feeling right now? And how does this, why am I feeling this way or whatever? But it's a great way to kind of force yourself to confront some feelings that maybe otherwise you wouldn't have even realized you had. I don't know if you ever feel that
Well,
way.
and it's funny because a lot of people, like people always say, I have the best ideas in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, no, duh, you have the best because you don't have your phone.
Yes.
Like you go in the shower and you can't be doing other things. You're just with your thoughts and you allow yourself the time to think. Like, of course you have the best ideas in the shower. And like when you're getting in the practice of like getting quiet or getting alone or whatever, it is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Some things that I've been trying to do, like go on a walk in the morning and like choose what kind of walk you want. Like if you're trying to get quiet, don't go on your phone, like put it in your pocket. So go on a walk or maybe wake up 10 minutes early and just like sit there with your coffee and open your journal and ask like, okay, what's going on? Like when you intentionally schedule it, it's a little bit easier, but the first few times it will be uncomfortable and you will want to turn on the office or check your phone or like we just get the like we're not even trying to like tune out. It's just like an itch, like a habit. Like we just, oh, I should be doing this. And it's like, no, like you're okay. Just chill out a minute. You'll be okay. And once you get comfortable in it is when you start to learn more about yourself. So.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think sometimes also, I know I sometimes feel the pressure, like I should always be doing something. Like I should, if I'm doing the dishes, I should also be listening to a podcast and learning something, or I should be watching the show that my friend told me about so we can have something to talk about the next time we get together. Like I should be doing, whatever. Like I kind of like put this pressure on myself or almost feel like it's like a virtue to always be busy or always be like doing something. And sometimes it's good to just like, it's not like a bad thing. It's not laziness or whatever to like sit back and take a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So tell me, I want to talk a little bit about, because a lot of my audience, they're like stay-at-home wives and people like that. Most of them are in relationships or married. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that because I know you talked about when you got married when you were 19. So how did you guys make the decision that he was going to be the primary breadwinner, at least in the beginning, or how did that all come about, and how did that feel for you, look like for you, all that?
Yeah. So for us, we met like in youth group in high school. And then I think it really like for us getting married young, I was 19, he was 20. So I think it really depends on the person and where you are in life and where you want to go.
Yeah.
Because for everybody, getting married young is not attainable, or it's just not a good idea, or it just doesn't work. Yeah. But for us, it was a good idea. And we were both in like an emotionally mature stage. And we were both committed. Like if we're getting married, we're staying married and like, we're going to figure it out. One of the first things that we decided as a couple, like divorce is not an option. Like we're not going to bring it up. We're never going to say it. That's not even on the table. Like if we have an argument, no matter how bad it is, we're never going to say the D word, and we haven't. And I think that's really important. But as far as like us and our relationship together, so he is a filmmaker and like he does video production. And so he started getting these jobs early on. First, he built a wedding photography business, and I would go with him to weddings. And so he would be like the main guy and I would be the assistant, which is fine. But then part of me on the inside, the part that's like, hey, look at me, I'm pride. I was like, I want to be the person that I want to be, like, and it's terrible, but it's, I admit it. And it's something that, like, I work through. But allowing my partner, allowing Ben to like, this is his thing. He's shining. He's doing so well. And of course, why would I be upset? Because him being successful is also me being successful. Like we're directly benefiting. Our finances are joined. So like if he succeeds, I succeed. So, so we've been married over 5 years. And over the course of our relationship, different things have changed. Businesses have changed. When we first were married, he was working at a supplement shop and I was working at a restaurant hostessing, like obviously not the most glamorous thing in the world. And more recently with the last few years, like, you know, I have all these dreams to YouTube and events and podcasts, and, you know, all the things. And he's done nothing but encourage and support and like, okay, how can we make this happen for you? How could we, like, he'll come in, because what I do, I produce content online. And with social media, you want it to look good, right? You need video skills and photo skills and like the Instagram husband. And so he like will come in and try to make it the best quality. And so it's like having a partner in life, especially if you're doing things and you're creating content and all that kind of thing, like you don't need someone that's exactly the same to you. In fact, I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend someone who's complementary to what you need and who has the opposite skills as you, but you need them so you can work well together. So that's kind of a peek into our relationship dynamic. We constantly are learning how we can support each other in different ways and understanding like, no, when you succeed, that is also me succeeding. So like, this isn't a competition.
Right.
And so it's been an ongoing like yin and yang of learning that for me.
Oh, it can be so hard to keep your ego in check, especially if you're two people who are both pretty driven in whatever you're doing. It can be really difficult. I've definitely felt that way because my husband is also entrepreneurial and I'm kind of entrepreneurial too. And it's like, it's hard to find that balance of like supporting each other and helping each other out with, you know, things or like, you know, offering your skill set to that other person that can be helpful and not like stepping on their toes or getting in their way or making them feel bad or, you know, poking holes in their ego or whatever it may be, which I mean, I'm not saying that like towards my husband, he same thing towards me. Like, how have you kind of been able to like communicate that with one another as you've kind of had to grow through that, I would imagine? What has that looked like in terms of like communicating what you need and the kind of space that you need? If you know, I'm sure your husband, you know, has lots of ideas and things. And sometimes, I don't know if you feel that way. Sometimes I know because my husband's like quite a techie guy and he probably could have helped me make this live stream, like some glamorous production, but sometimes I just need that space to like figure it out myself. I don't know if you ever feel that way. I'm kind of rambling, but how has that looked like for you?
All the things. So the first thing, I started looking at other couples that we knew that we were friends with that were more successful than us. And I kind of started asking like, what are they doing? Like, how are they making it work? We have a couple friend, and she's a realtor. He does video production as well. So they both have their own jobs. And then together they own a cafe. Like they own it's like a mini chain. So there's 3 cafes in my city. So they run and operate like 3 cafes and they have their own things. And then together, like they were both previously married. They have 6 kids.
Wow.
And so I was looking at them like, how are they making it work? Because they both seemed happy. Their relationship seemed good. Like, what is happening here? And from watching them, I kind of realized that they were setting boundaries. And for me, like, I love my husband. I want to spend as much time as possible with him. But if I do, and I sacrifice like my work for that, then I'll never, because if I have these big ambitious goals, I won't reach them if I'm constantly like, oh, it's okay if I don't work on my YouTube video. I'll just hang out with you. So I think the first one would be setting boundaries and understanding. I love you and I support you. And if you need me, I'm there. But I also need to pull back a little bit to work on my own stuff and create that boundary for me. And everyone's different, but for me, that's what that is. The second one, which I think is a little bit more of what you're talking about, is my husband's personality is, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this completely perfect. Like, he's a perfectionist. And
mine too.
And my personality is good enough. Done is better than perfect.
Yes.
You got it. And so that creates a huge clash. It did a few years ago, especially because he's like, no, if you're going to do this, you need to do it perfectly. And like, he does that because he wants the best for me. And he wants me to be portrayed the best. But for me, I'm like, I can't do that. You're stressing me out. And it would,
Yes.
create the opposition. And so I think for that, you have to understand the different personality types of who, like, you guys meshing together.
Uh-huh.
And the third part is the criticism. So that's one of my biggest flaws. And I recognize that, and I'm working on that. Like, I struggle accepting criticism. And when you're married, I heard the analogy that it's like you're being put in front of a mirror for your life every single day. And this person, they love you. They know you better than anyone else. However, they see all of the good and all of the bad. So if you say you're going to wake up at 7 a.m. to do something, and then you wake up at 9 and they're like, hey, like, didn't you just say you were, it's a mirror for your faults, basically. Yep. And so just kind of understanding how the other person communicates, how if they say something like, hey, your audio, it didn't sound good on that last video, instead of getting like really defensive, like, oh, well, you try to do, instead of doing that, maybe like, okay, what are they trying to tell me? Why are they telling me this? Is he telling me this because he thinks I suck? No. Like, he wants me to be successful. So understanding, even though it can be really like humbling and frustrating, and I still get mad sometimes, like, just let me do this. He's like, I told you that idea 3 months ago and you didn't do it. I'm like, yeah, but I just needed to hear it from someone else. Like,
right. Yeah. Oh man.
It's definitely hard, but those are kind of the 3 things that have helped me, like understanding boundaries, like my work is important, understanding communication styles, and then learning to accept feedback and criticism from your spouse.
Yeah.
Those are the 3.
Those are so good. Those are so good. And I'm reading through a couple of comments here on our live. Kat just said she's trying to recondition herself not to immediately answer or pick up her phone every time there's a notification.
That's
hard. And that's a really good one. And then Karen was saying, hey, Karen. And then Angela, back when we were talking about more your confidence journey, she was saying, you're born an original, don't die a copy. I think that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what you're saying about boundaries, I think that's so important. I mean, I've even through this whole coronavirus thing, my husband's been working from home a lot more than usual. And he and I both are very independent people. And it sounds like you and your husband are a little bit that way too. And so we love each other. We love spending time together. I mean, we're best friends, but we're both kind of introverts, and we're both pretty independent, and we like to do our own thing. And I know we've both had to say, like, I need a little bit of time today to like do my own thing, or, like I've got laundry piling up. I really need you to just like give me a minute to like go in the other room and fold that. And then can we talk about this afterwards or whatever? Sometimes it is important to just like communicate like, hey, I just need a minute here to like get something done, or, get this off my, something's like on your brain bothering you. I need to just like get this done. And then we can like, you can have my full attention or whatever. And then making sure that you fulfill the other end of that bargain and you do give them your full attention. Like Kat was talking about, don't let yourself get distracted when you do. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. Oh man, it's so hard. So I don't know if you mentioned this yet in this video. Maybe you have. You are having a baby. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about like how you guys are preparing for this transition in life, or, I mean, you guys have been married 5 years. So, I mean, I'm sure you've been through a few transitional times in life, and like, how are you and your husband, like, have you talked about like how your relationship might change or evolve as this new baby comes, and like how has that conversation looked between you guys, like how you're kind of preparing yourself or mentally preparing together for this change in your life?
It's kind of funny because I don't know. I think one of the things about being married, and it's as a wife, I think, is it's tempting to want to try to control your husband. And the more you try to force someone to do something, the less it's going to work out. And as you said, like, you're like, it seems like you and your husband are pretty independent. We're both firstborns, and we're both very stubborn. Yeah. So when it comes to relationship, we can be like, but one of the things that I learned like early on about marriage is like you marry someone, yes, and you think you know a lot about that person when you marry them, right? Like you think like, oh my gosh, this person is amazing. Of course I know everything about them. They told me their lives, like your infatuation, right? And even like we got married on our 2-year dating anniversary. Like we had known each other 2 years and we were friends before then. So it's like you think you know a lot about the person.
Yeah.
But there's no way to know all of the different levels and nuances of another person until you've spent years with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that to discredit any new wives out there, because when I got married, I was like, yeah, I know him. Like weird like this, I know him so well. But there's no way to know everything about the person. And one of the sad things, I look around because we've been married a while now. I look around and some of the people who got married when we did, young, they're starting to get divorced. And I'm like, oh no, like what's going on here? And I think, I don't know, I'm not in their relationship, but people change over time.
Yeah.
And if you're married, you have to make the decision that we're going to grow together and we're going to change together. And the person you married 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago is not who you are with now. Hopefully they have evolved and learned new skills and have become a different type of person with the same nuances and characteristics, but hopefully they're a different person and hopefully you're growing with them. Like that's the goal.
Yeah.
And so one of the beautiful things that we did, it's not for everybody, but we waited to have a kid because we wanted to spend that time together. We were still young when we got married. And so over the last 5 years, we've changed so much. Like we've shifted and pivoted and like we've gone through so many different phases that our relationship, like we are best friends. We are rock solid.
Yeah.
And although we haven't exclusively like, so how are we going to keep up the marriage, like with the baby? I don't have any doubts for how it's going to be because we've already like evolved 3 times, like since we've been married. We've already changed a lot, and it's walking through all of the different seasons with your partner. And like what I mentioned before is like, you can't change someone. You can't force your husband or whoever to change. When I first got pregnant, I was very like starting to read all the books. Okay, we're going to prepare, like, you know, really getting into that mindset. Yeah. And he just wasn't there yet. He just like mentally, he was like, I mean, he's excited about the baby, but he didn't want to be learning about breastfeeding and like the difference between formula and like, he didn't want to be there yet. And he keeps saying, I think I'll be able to feel more emotionally connected when the baby's actually here.
Yeah.
Right now it's in your belly and you can feel it kick, which is cool, but I don't feel as emotionally connected yet because I can't see it. I can't hold it. I can't. And he's excited, but I can't force him to be where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely a different experience for women than men. Because like, yeah, for you, it's very real. For him, it's still kind of like an abstract thing until the baby's actually here.
Yeah. You can't force someone to feel what you're feeling or be where you can't force someone to be where you are.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, like I respect your experience. I respect where you are and like, take your time.
Yeah. What are your favorite things to do together? Like to reconnect or just for like a date night, or how do you guys like, stay connected with each other?
So I know a lot of people are really like animate about on Friday nights we do date night, or, you know, like you hear different tips in the marriage community. But for us, we both work from home and we're both with each other every day. Yeah. All day, every day. So I think one of the things that have strengthened our relationship the most is sharing so many unique experiences together. We love to travel. We've gone to like Colorado and New York. And it's funny because we've gone for jobs of his and I've just gone as like his assistant, but we also get to sneak in, like we started skiing and snowboarding and like, you know, when we could travel more, like when we went to New York, it was so fun. We went on a helicopter ride. So like experiencing life together is a great way to strengthen a relationship. Trying new things together, even if it's just a
Mhm.
restaurant, like you don't have to be flying it on a helicopter in New York, like trying a new restaurant in your city, or just bringing in new together is a great way to like strengthen your bond with each other. Cause it's like, oh, what do you think of that? Oh, that was fun. Or, oh, like just, I don't know, you're
Right.
navigating life together. And that
Yeah.
really helped us.
Yeah, and you have like those fun experiences to look back on. And I can totally
Mhm.
relate to you to like what you were saying, because we don't do like a weekly date night.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who do, and that's amazing. And for some people, that's really important. And for us in our marriage, that might be something that we implement somewhere down the road because, you know, things change. But I also think it's important, like, to hear people like what you're saying, like, you don't have to do that to have a successful marriage. I know like
No,
my
no.
parents have been married for like 30 plus years and they have a great marriage, and they're not as like rigid about stuff like that either, but they like the thing I think they do is every night they always like chat in bed before they go to sleep. That's like kind of their time to like connect, and if there's something they need to talk about, that's when they'll talk about it and stuff. And so I think that's kind of become like their kind of point of connection for them. And then for my husband and I, because we don't have kids, it's a lot easier to like, if we need to talk about something, we don't have to like wait till we put the kids to bed or anything like that yet. Which, you know, obviously that may change one day, but yeah, it changes. I mean, everybody's relationship is so different and it evolves over time, and what works now may not work in the future. And, you know, that's okay.
Yeah. And I feel like it's kind of like the confidence thing. Like when you're looking around and you're like, is that how I'm supposed to do it? Is that what I
Yeah.
need to do to have a successful marriage? Like, oh, Bill and Susie, they do date night every Friday night. And they said they have, like, and this getting personal, they said they have sex 4 times a week. Should we bump it up to 4? Like, and it's like, do what works for you. Do
Yes.
what works for your relationship. Don't worry. Like, if you want to try some of the things that someone else recommended, okay, cool. But there's no like guidelines or rule book, or like your relationship is your relationship. And
Right.
like it's no one else's business. If you want to share, you can, but you don't have to follow like, and then there's the old rule, like never go to bed angry. Like I've gone to bed a little angry. Like,
Sometimes you just need some sleep.
like I need space.
Yeah.
And so there's no pressure. Like you don't have to follow the rigid rules to try to have a good marriage or a happy
Yes.
marriage. It's your own. Like create your own experience. You're okay. It's okay. Breathe.
Yes. It's so true. It's so true. And also sometimes it's not fair to put on your partner. Like for example, if I know like one of my friends, her husband is in charge of the dishes, and she never has to worry about the dishes because that's his thing and he always does it. I'm like, why doesn't my husband do the dishes? I'm like,
Yes.
okay, Lauryn, like he does other things. Like there are other things that he's wonderful at that maybe her husband doesn't do. Or like, you know, it's not fair to like compare your spouse to someone else. Or like,
Yeah.
you know, why doesn't my husband buy me flowers every single week? It's like, okay, like that's not fair to like put that on your spouse, because you know everybody has a different way of showing their love and of contributing to your family. So yeah, it can be hard not to compare yourself, especially if you're kind of feeling down in general, you know?
Well, I think like resentment is one of the like most toxic things in a
Yes.
relationship. So what you're saying, like your friend, her husband does the dishes every night. So I'm a terrible cook. I did not grow up cooking at all, at all, at all. But my husband, he is a great cook. He's fabulous. It's amazing. It's like fine dining. But he does not do the dishes. So he cooks and I clean. And it can be really easy to like scrubbing the dishes and he can clean the dishes. And
Yeah.
we've agreed. Why am I doing it? We've agreed. He cooks, I cleans. We've made that agreement. Why am I getting so worked? You could clean a dish. You could just
Right.
So I think being in check, like of resent in your life, if you start feeling resentful, that's kind of like, ooh, we might need to work on this, or we might need to go through this, because I think resentment is a really toxic thing to have in a relationship.
So true. So how do you deal with that? Like if you're starting to feel those feelings that we all feel sometimes.
I think expectations, understanding, because I mean, that's a big part of relationships.
Yeah.
What is expected of me in this relationship? What have we talked about? What have we agreed upon? And it's funny because sometimes when I get mad, I don't yell and scream, I cry because I'm like, ah!
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll get upset and then I'll just start crying. And my husband's like, what's wrong with you? What happened? And then I start crying about whatever. And he's like, Sarena, like, why are you so upset about this? We talked about, like, I'm trying to get a specific example for you. Okay. So he has to travel a lot for work sometimes. And so me getting mad, like, you're leaving me on Monday. I have to be alone all day. And then it's like, well, Sarena, I have to make money for us. Like, I'm doing this for us. I'm not doing this to leave you. You know, I'm not doing that. And it's like, oh, like, what are the expectations? Am I expecting you to be here with me every day, every minute? Like, is that the expectation? Or is the expectation we're going to make it together to do what we need to do as a couple to make this work? And kind of walking through how you're feeling and walking through, like, why am I tripping? What's going on here?
Yes. Yeah.
Working through all of that is
right. It's so important. It's so important. And then you gave me the perfect segue because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about being alone because not only from like a loneliness perspective, which we can get into that too, but also just like being home alone all day because a lot of my girls here are home alone all day. And I know you are sometimes when your husband is off, working on a project. And you did a video recently where you talked about like how to have a good day when you're alone. And I love that video. So you guys watching really should go and watch that because you had so many good tips and advice for that. But if you want to just like kind of summarize your thoughts here, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So what happens for me, I know everybody's different, but how I experience it is like my husband will have a job or he'll be flying to Texas or whatever. He'll have something and he'll be like, okay, I'm going to be gone like for 3 days. And at first, when we first got married, I'd be like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do while you're gone? Like kind of feeling more victim, like, oh, what was, but it's actually a really good thing to be able to spend time by yourself. And I've been kind of challenging myself and asking the question, like, what type of woman do I want to be? Like, who do I absolutely want to show up as? Do I want to be the type of woman who can go to the restaurant and like have a dinner by myself? Like, I want to feel comfortable to sit at that restaurant by myself and not feel like people are watching me, not feel insecure. I want that confidence, right? Like my whole life ties back to confidence. And so what does that look like for you? Because everybody's different. Like what would a really good day for you look like? And so if you have the whole day by yourself, what could you do that could make you happier? That could make you feel more calm, that could give you more energy, that you would feel proud that you got that done at the end of the day. And everyone's different. There's millions of examples, but like you could start the day going on a walk. And then after that, maybe you could read a book, or after that, you could go out to lunch with a friend. Like we get so stuck in our routines. And if we're not planning or thinking about what we want to do with our life, it just kind of happens to us.
Yes.
And we just kind of like, we binge watch the show, or I'm on TikTok for 2 hours. How'd that happen? Like time slips. But if you take the time to ask, like, how do I want my day to happen? What do I what have I been really wanting to do? And could I make that happen today? Then at the end of the day, you can look back and go like, oh, like today was actually really great. And I didn't see anyone. I didn't do anything. Like it's just intentionally planning, like what type of woman do you want to show up in the world? And then what are the things that you do to be that or do that? And you don't have to be like super crazy productivity master. If you want to just feel more calm and more centered, like, yes, do some yoga, do some meditation, journal, like do the things. Like there's not one type of woman you have to be, but choose, who do you want to be today? What do you want to do? And that really helps, like when you have the chunks of time where you're alone or the full day alone.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Like making yourself sit down and think, what kind of woman do I want to be? Like, what kind of person do I want to be? And then you kind of work backwards from that. Okay, so what does that look like from, on a day-to-day basis? And that's such a good way to look at it. That's a good journal prompt if you're a journaler, like to
Ooh,
sit down
yeah.
and like write about, okay, what do I want my life to look like? Like who do I want to be, That's such a good thing to think about. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about loneliness because you talked about like when you first got married, feeling very lonely or feeling like people don't understand you. And then, I mean, through 2020, oh my gosh, we've all felt that way from time to time. We've all felt so isolated. Or why wasn't I invited on that Zoom happy hour or
Oh.
whatever? Like we've just been given so much space to like be alone that every little thing I think sometimes we notice, or we like maybe notice like that we're left out of things that we otherwise wouldn't have even cared about because we're just like all bored and alone. But how have you kind of dealt with that, and what has that looked like for you in terms of like handling those feelings?
Yeah, I think 2020 has been a ringer for everybody. Um, it's funny because I keep bringing up this story like to my friends, and at the beginning of 2020, a graphic kept circulating and it kept saying like, get sleep, do a home workout, check in on your friends, like for how to get through the pandemic.
Mm.
And so this graphic kept circulating and it kept saying, check in on your friends, check in on your friends, check in. And I'm like, okay, like, and so I started to like go through my list of like who I was checking in on. And it was so humbling because I realized I didn't really have any friends. I have a lot of acquaintances on social media, but when it comes to spending time with people in real life, not very many. And I think mentally I was kind of tricked. I thought that all my friends on Instagram were like my friends. Like I'm good. I'm good. I have
Yeah.
friends. Like I'm doing life with them. But I wasn't seeing them. I wasn't getting coffee with them pre-pandemic. We weren't doing life together. And I was kind of tricked by the online friends versus like what a friend actually is. So
Mhm.
pandemic, you cannot see anyone, you cannot do anything, you cannot go out. And it was really challenging for me because it's like, okay, well, maybe we're just in a season of loneliness. Maybe we're just in this phase right now. Maybe God's trying to show you something, or you're trying to like, he's working on you. So that is a really uncomfortable place to be in. And if you are there right now watching, it'll be okay. It can't last forever, but you do need to sit in it, and you do need to like, okay, what is this season teaching me? What can I do with all this time right now to work through how I feel? Are there things that I could start trying, or like hobbies that I can start experimenting with? Like that's the first step. And then the second step, which is kind of like a trait or something about me that I've been like learning, I feel like my whole life, no, is the mindset shift. Why does someone else need to invite you to the happy hour? Why can't you make a happy hour? Why,
Yeah.
why are you waiting to be included on that Zoom call? Why can't you initiate and start the Zoom call? Instead of like looking at that table wondering why you don't have a seat, like why don't you just make your own table? And so that is really around like creating community in your life. There's the concept of like a fisherman casts his line, casts his net. And
Mhm.
so with your friendships, try casting your net, reach out to a couple girls. Like there's nothing wrong with being the first person to be like, hey, do you want to get coffee? Do you want to do, I mean, right now, if you're not doing coffee, do you want to do a FaceTime coffee date?
Yeah.
Like there's nothing wrong with being the first person. And yes, it can be awkward. Yes, some people are going to say no because they forget, or they don't want to, or their schedule is too busy right now. But if you reach out to 5 girls, maybe one of them will say yes. And maybe eventually you'll have a really good friend just from you reaching out that one time.
Right.
Friendship's not easy. It's hard. It's
Mhm.
really, it's hard. So if you're in the loneliness now, like what can I learn? And don't be afraid to reach out and create your own table if you feel okay to do that.
Yeah, that is such a good point, and that's so true. I mean, it goes back to what I think a lot of us were taught in elementary school, and then we forget as adults. It's like, if you want to have friends, you have to be a good friend. Like
Yeah.
what is the thing that you wish someone was like, do you wish someone was reaching out to you right now? Okay, well, there's
Mhm.
probably someone else who wishes someone was reaching out to them. Like, then you be that person for them. And like we were talking about expectations earlier, you kind of have to let go of any expectations
Yeah.
and not expect this new person to become your best friend. And,
Mhm.
just allow them to be who they are, and maybe they'll become a really close, like, deep friendship, or maybe it'll just be a nice acquaintance that you check up on once in a while. And you kind of have to
Yeah.
like let go of that expectation and understand that, like, not everyone is going to be everything that you need, but that's okay. Like you talked about casting a wide net. Like, that's
Mhm.
so true. You have to, just put some feelers out, and not get all wrapped up in the results of what that is, instead of just being like, all right, cool, that's a win. I talked to 5 people, or I asked 5 girls if they could do coffee or whatever. Yeah. But it
Yeah.
is sometimes scary. We're so fearful of rejection sometimes that we don't even want to like reach out.
Well, it's funny because like I just announced I was pregnant on social media, but I've been pregnant the last 6 months,
Yeah.
And so if someone reached out to me and I'm going through a lot on my own, And so
Mhm.
when you're reaching out to someone, you don't know where they are emotionally.
Right.
They could be in a really good season where they want friends and they want to make friends, or maybe they just got a new job, or they just got laid off, or they just got pregnant, or you don't know where they're at. And that's why it's important to reach out to a couple people and have open expectations like, hey, if this works out, cool. But if not, like maybe in a few months we'll get coffee, or, like
Yes.
not having the expectations on someone, because that's where we get really disappointed, like get butthurt, like, oh,
Right.
they don't want to hang out with, and then you never reach out to them again. It's like, no,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not right either. I know
Right.
the cat over here in the comments. I never realized that my expectations could be the reason for unhappiness and discontentment. And it's like,
Mhm.
I think she was talking about the relationships back when we were
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about it. But even for friendships, like if you're expecting the first person you reach out to say yes and then become your best friend, you might get disappointed.
Right. Right. Yeah. And you just never know. Like, you said it perfectly. You never know what season of life they're in. They might be just really busy. And so it's nothing personal. Maybe they would
Yeah.
love to be your friend, but they just don't have the bandwidth right now. Like, they're just bogged down with other stuff, and they can't, they just don't even have the mental capacity to respond to your text. Like, maybe it's not a personal offense that they ghosted you. Maybe they're just,
Yeah.
busy with other stuff, and they haven't like gotten there yet to replying to messages or whatever it may be. So yeah, I think you always have to kind of just give people the benefit of the doubt, and be willing to, catch up in a month if it doesn't work out or whatever. Just be flexible with people.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I think that's such a good point of just being able, or being willing to put yourself out there a little bit, and don't go into it with any expectations, but just offer up your friendship and see who bites.
Well, and that takes confidence.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
it
It all
all
circles back.
it you're not going to talk to someone at a dinner party if you're insecure
Yeah.
about your hair, your makeup, if you think you have salad in your teeth. You're going to be thinking about you. But if
Yeah.
you feel like you is okay, if you feel like you're like, okay, I look good, I'm okay with how I look, if you have the confidence, then you'll initiate a conversation. You'll get outside of yourself. So, yeah, it's not confidence, but it's all confidence.
Right, right. Oh man, it's so good. Well, we're closing in on an hour here, so I'll start to wrap up. I've got just a few more questions.
Okay, I'll try to be
So
quick.
first of all, I know that you're a reader, so I want to give you the opportunity to share a book or two that has been really impactful for you, that you like, the book that you would tell everybody you meet, you have to read this book, or a couple, maybe if it's more than one. What would that be for you?
So, if you're a Christian looking for a book, there's one called Pursued, and it's written by Judd Wilhite, who is a pastor in Las Vegas. And it's a story from the Bible. It talks about Hosea and Gomer. And it's basically a super righteous, godly man loving a prostitute, and
Mm.
what that is like, and how it talks about how radical God's love is for us. So, if you're a Christian, that's a great book. If you're looking for more personal development, more like, let's get things going. I really like, there's so many. I love reading. Okay, we'll shift. If you want friendship advice, because we talked about friendship, a great one is The Art of Showing Up. It's by Rachel Lee Wilkerson, and it's all about how to show up for yourself in the first half and then how to show up for other people in the second half. And I guess the third book would be Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. And it's all about setting boundaries with our technology and our devices. So those are three good books, kind of eclectic, like a little scattered there.
Oh, that's great though.
But for Christian, pursue Judd Wilhite. For friendships and more personal development, The Art of Showing Up. And then for like social media, like get this situated, digital minimalism for sure.
That's so cool. All right. Well, I'm just going to give you an opportunity to give some final thoughts and things you want to say. And then I want to make sure that we give you space to let everyone know where to find you. So if you guys who are watching are thinking to yourself, man, I like this girl and I can totally relate to her, where can we find you? And then also just leave us with your final thoughts, anything else you want to say or wrap up, and then we'll wrap up here.
Yeah, thank you. So if it depends what type of content you want. I'm on Instagram, of course. If you're a podcaster, I have like 50 episodes in the backlog if you want to listen to those. YouTube, obviously we're on YouTube. So I'm coming out with more information around relationships. We talked about relationships a lot in this live, and my husband thinks he's the star of the show. So he's wanting some airtime.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
So relationship content is coming to my YouTube channel. So subscribe for there. But right now what's on there is a lot of confidence advice, personal development, how to spend time with yourself and enjoy it. That's all on there. So go there for that. As far as like imparting words or famous last words, I would just say, like, if there's something on your mind and if there's something in your heart, like, it's there on purpose. And even if there's like 20 other girls doing exactly what you want to do, don't let that discourage you, because you're the only one that can do it in the way that you would do it. Because the way you speak is different from everybody. The way you see the world is different from everybody. The types of ideas that you have and then how you execute those ideas, that's different from everybody. So even if someone was trying to copy you and be you, they couldn't do it. So if you have an idea and if you have something that you want to do, don't let the fear stop you, but just create it. Because the world, I really believe this, the world needs what you have. And the idea that you were given was given to you for a reason. So it's your job to create it so that other people can benefit from it one day.
That is so good.
So go do it.
Wow. That was a wonderful way to end it. Thank you so much for being on here, Sarena. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
and like I said, go check her out. Check out her YouTube channel. It is linked in the description box of this video. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this broadcast, and we will see you later. Thanks, girl.